So when the dreams began to feel intentional, Elias blamed the job. He was a junior archivist at the city hospital, a job that required him to catalog decades of patient records, paper files from a time before everything was digitized. Long hours, poor lighting, and the constant smell of dust and antiseptic. People underestimated how much death lived in paperwork. Every file told a story that ended badly. The first recurring dream was simple. He stood in a long corridor with no doors. The walls were tiled white, but the grout was black, as though something had seeped into it over time. The ceiling lights flickered, not violently, but irregularly, like a tired heartbeat. The floor was damp beneath his feet, though he never saw water. At the end of the corridor was a mirror. Each night, he walked closer to it. The mirror always reflected him correctly. At first, same face, same thinning hair, same tired eyes. But the longer he looked, the more something felt wrong. His reflection blinked a fraction of a second too late. Its breathing didn't match his own. Sometimes it smiled when he didn't. The dream always ended the same way. Elias reaching out to touch the glass, his reflection doing the same, and then the lights going out. He would wake up with his heart racing, mouth dry, the echo of fluorescent buzzing still ringing in his ears. He told no one. Everyone had nightmares. This was nothing. The second dream began a week later. This one didn't start with him. It started with a child. A little girl sat on the edge of a bed in a dark room, her feet not quite touching the floor. She wore a hospital gown that was too large, its hem brushing her ankles. Her hair hung in uneven clumps, as though it had been cut by someone in a hurry. Elias watched from the corner of the room. He didn't know how he knew he was there. Dream logic never explained such things. But he felt anchored to the shadows, unable to move. The girl stared at the door. Someone was breathing on the other side, slow, wet, patient. The handle turned. The door opened just enough for darkness to spill through, thick and heavy, like oil. A shape leaned into the room, too tall, its outline warping against the light from the hallway. The girl whispered something Elias couldn't hear. The thing answered. Its voice wasn't loud. It wasn't even threatening. It spoke with the weary familiarity of someone who had done this many times before. Then it stepped inside. Elias woke up screaming. The sound startled him. His own voice, hoarse and animal. His hands were shaking so badly that he dropped his phone when he reached for it. The clock read 3:17 a.m. He didn't go back to sleep. After that, the dreams began to stack. They bled into one another, overlapping, sharing details. The corridor returned, but now there were doors, dozens of them, each labeled with a number written in black marker. The mirror was gone. In its place was a metal gurney with straps hanging loose. The child returned, but was older now. Her gown was stained. Her eyes were sunken. She no longer waited on the bed. She stood in the hallway, pointing down the corridor. "Don't sleep," she whispered. Elias began to dread nightfall. He drank coffee until his hands trembled. He stayed up watching television with the volume low, lights on, telling himself he would rest in just a minute. He fell asleep in fragments, 20 minutes here, 10 minutes there, jerking awake each time with the certainty that something had been waiting for him. At work, he found it harder to focus. That was when he noticed the file. It was misfiled, tucked between two unrelated records, its tab yellowed and curling. The label read, "Sleep Disorders, Observation Ward, 1989. Elias frowned. He had cataloged that section months ago. He was sure of it. Still, mistakes happened. He pulled the file free. Inside were intake forms, handwritten notes, and grainy photocopies of sleep study graphs. Most of the patients were children. Most of the notes were incomplete. One phrase appeared again and again in different handwriting. Patient reports, dreaming of the same place. Another, nightmares exhibit continuity across sleep cycles. Another, underlined twice, subjects appear aware they are being observed. Elias felt a chill creep up his spine. At the bottom of the file was a photograph. It showed a hospital corridor. White tiles, black grout, flickering lights. At the end of the corridor was a mirror. Elias slammed the file shut. He took the file home. He told himself it was professional curiosity, that he intended to report the misfiling the next day. But when he placed it on his kitchen table, he felt a sense of recognition, like greeting someone he had known a long time ago, but couldn't remember from where. That night, he didn't bother trying to stay awake. He lay in bed with the lights on and waited. Sleep took him anyway. He stood in the corridor again, but this time he wasn't alone. The doors were open. Inside each room was a bed. On each bed lay someone asleep. Some were children, some were adults. Some were too thin, their skin stretched tight over bone. Machines surrounded them, monitors that didn't display vitals so much as patterns. The air hummed with low-frequency sound, like a massive generator buried deep underground. Elias walked past the rooms. As he passed, eyes opened. Not all at once, one by one. They watched him. At the end of the corridor, the mirror was back. Only now, his reflection wasn't there. Instead, the glass showed a vast, dark space filled with sleeping bodies, suspended in nothingness, drifting like corpses in deep water. Something moved among them, a shape too large to comprehend, its outline shifting, folding in on itself. Tendrils, or limbs, or thoughts brushed against the sleepers, sinking into their heads, feeding. Elias felt hands on his shoulders. He turned. The little girl stood behind him. Her face was wrong now, stretched, older than it should be, her mouth filled with too many teeth. "This is where they put the bad dreams," she said. Then she pushed him into the mirror. He woke up on the floor of his apartment, blood running from his nose, the files scattered around him. The photograph was gone. In its place was a handwritten note on hospital letterhead. "You are a very interesting subject." Elias didn't go to work that day, or the next. He stopped answering his phone. Sleep became unavoidable, and each time he slept, he went deeper. The corridor expanded, branching into impossible geometries. The rooms multiplied. The sleepers began to whisper, not in words, but in sensations. Panic, despair, endless falling. He learned things he wished he hadn't. He learned that nightmares didn't disappear when people woke up. They went somewhere else. He learned that some dreams were harvested. And he learned that the thing moving through the dark, the thing the hospital once tried to study, contain, name, had found him. Because Elias could see it. Most people couldn't. That made him valuable. The entity came to him on the 7th night. It didn't wear a face. It wore many borrowed impressions of faces pulled from the sleepers around it, layered and incomplete. Its voice was a chorus of half-remembered tones. "You are awake in the wrong way," it said. Elias tried to run. The corridor stretched. The doors slammed shut. "You archive the dead," the thing continued. We archive fear. It showed him memories that weren't his. Children strapped to beds, electrodes digging into scalps. Doctors watch monitors spike and stabilize. A breakthrough, a mistake. The realization that nightmares could be shared, transferred, stored, fed upon. You open the door, the entity said gently. Now you belong to the collection. Elias screamed. The sound didn't travel. In the waking world, Elias was found weeks later in his apartment, dehydrated, malnourished, eyes open, alive but unresponsive. Doctors said it was a coma. The EEG showed activity, but it didn't resemble anything they had seen before. Patterns repeated, nested inside one another like fractals. A young neurologist requested the old files. She found the sleep disorders folder misfiled in the archives. She recognized the corridor in the photograph. That night, she dreamed of a hallway. At the end of it, a man stood in front of a mirror, pounding on the glass, his mouth open in a silent scream. Behind him, something waited. They say nightmares are just the brain misfiring, leftover fear, chemical noise. But sometimes, when you wake up gasping, heart racing, convinced something was just there, it's because it was, and it's still hungry. And now it knows your name. If this story stayed with you longer than it should have, support the channel by liking and commenting. And check the dark for a moment before you sleep.